Are live.
All right.
Or live. All right, so I'm live. Let me make sure that everything is going right on all my socials because technology sometimes doesn't always work out the way that we want it to. All right, so I am live on Facebook. And I figured out why. I figured out finally why my Facebook chat wouldn't pop up on my restream. Apparently, if you're trying to stream on like your Facebook page through restream, if your stream is set to friends only, the chat won't show up in restream. So you have to set it to public. So I thought that was really interesting. So I don't know if you'll ever do that. I don't know if you even use your Facebook page, your gaming Facebook page anymore. But
I don't.
If you ever decide to do that ever again in life, and you want to,
I think I am it, actually.
Just so you know, it has to be set to public if you ever want to use Restream for it.
Keep that in mind.
All right, so let's make sure that I'm live on YouTube. Okay, so Lynn is in here, so we are live on YouTube. Shout outs to Lynn.
Yo.
And then let me see if I'm live on Twitch.
Mixer
is dead, so that's no longer a thing.
Okay, here you go. It says you're playing Dauntless, though.
Oh, I need to change that to IRL. All right, so we're live on all the socials right now, it seems.
Yep, we live, boys. We live.
Well,
girls, in this case.
To those of you guys who are tuning in, we got 4 people in here right now. Shout outs to all 4 of you guys who are in here early. You guys must have me on your notifications page, which I really appreciate. So thank you guys for that. Does IRL not exist on Twitch anymore? Oh, there it is. So if you are in here, make sure you guys give this a share. Make sure you give this a like. That would be greatly appreciated. So I'll go ahead and get into it now that I know that we're live and everything and that everything is working well. So this is episode 3 of Teachers in Quarantine. Teachers in Quarantine is a podcast that Sax and I have done or created to talk about the teacher side of life, because both of us are teachers. This is a podcast where we talk about teacher things, and then we also have lifestyle topics that we talk about here and there. But today we're talking more in depth about some of the teacher side of things, because there's a lot of things going on in the world right now that are centering schools and schools reopening and teachers and kids and parents and how everybody's feeling about everything. So this show is going to be basically just jam-packed full of teacher things. So before we get into it, I'll allow Jerome to reintroduce himself, and then we can go into some good things.
All right, I'm Jerome. I'm known in the community for the people who know me as Sax Rebel HD. I'm a music teacher, saxophone. Hopefully y'all made that connection. And
you are such a teacher really talking about making connections. Oh my God, I love it.
That's mainly it. If you know me, or if you know her, then you probably know me because I'm like always talking to Nia at some point in time, no matter, who, if it's on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, playing games with her.
Yeah, streams and stuff like that. You've been around a minute, so I should know you. Well, everybody knows who I am because this is my channel. So I'm Nia, of course. And I am also a teacher. For those of you guys who've been following me all this time and didn't know, I'm a teacher. I teach kindergarten, so, he teaches the bigger kids. I teach the little bitties. And, yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about some good things. So, in true teacher fashion, the first thing that we like to talk about is good things and just kind of talk about all the good things going on in our lives. I guess I'll start since Jerome went first for the last introduction. So, as far as for me, good things for me, I did meet someone. So, to those of you guys who have been watching Teachers in Quarantine since episode 1, we actually did have a topic about dating. And it just so happens that between episode 1 and now, I just happened to meet the exact person that I talked about in episode 1, which is Brazy. I don't know how that happens. I guess that means God loves me.
You spoke it into existence.
Huh?
You spoke it into existence.
I spoke it into existence, I guess, because he really just popped out of nowhere. But I met someone, he's good to me. Like, he's really a joy to be around, and he's really been helping me cope with all of the anxiety that I've been feeling here lately about everything related to school, especially. Lynn's stupid. She's talking about he's scared to show his face. Here's the thing with that. He wants to get on stream with me, but he didn't want to get on stream with me the other day because he doesn't have a haircut. And you know how some dudes are about their haircuts? He didn't have a haircut. He feels like his hair is too long, so he's been wearing a do-rag, and he doesn't want to get on stream with his do-rag because he doesn't want y'all to think he's like a hoodlum. I'm like, boy, don't nobody care. Don't nobody care. But outside of meeting someone new, another good thing is that I've been actually spending a lot more time with my dad. I don't know if we've actually talked about this on Teachers in Quarantine, but growing up, me and my dad, like, we didn't really have much of a relationship. Like, we saw each other here and there. I acknowledged him as my dad, he acknowledged him as his daughter, and it was kind of more like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. Like, when we were together, we were daddy-daughter. When we were not together, it just kind of like, we just didn't really talk, like, keep tabs and, you know, connect often. And so, you know, when I was younger, like a lot of kids who didn't grow up with their dads, you kind of have a little bit of resentment towards your parents. In my adulthood, you know, me and my dad, we finally decided, you know, we were actually going to really try to actually have a relationship and reconnect with one another. And so for the last 2 years, I've been actually, you know, sticking with it and having that connection with my dad. And this is the second year. This is the second year that I've actually spent Father's Day with my dad. And I'm going to go see him again in a couple weeks. And
good.
It's good, man. Like, I feel like that's definitely a blessing. Like, something that I definitely have to count my blessings for this year. Like,
I mixed you on something on Twitter just to make fun of you really quickly.
GG Mixer? Oh, on Twitter?
Yeah, just something to make you laugh.
Oh, snaps. Let me check this out. Yes! Yes! I love it right now. Yes. I love it.
That's how you look. Literally, you did the whole glasses thing, and then your screen's on the glasses. You have to show them what it is.
Oh shoot! I love it. I'm gonna share this, and I guess I'm done with that. You can talk about your good things. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
For me, good things. As of lately, the biggest thing that I'm getting ready for is my best friend's getting married on Friday. I'm the best man in the wedding, and just that whole wedding, like getting ready for and then being actively a part is like, I'm excited, but there's a lot of stuff and it's real stressful. Like the week of, I've had to change my plans at least like 3 or 4 times for what I was going to do that day because we just keep having stuff going on. Oh, so yeah. It's like a kind of exciting, like anxiousnness, I guess. Maybe thrilling. I'm trying to find the right adjective.
Because you're actually having to play a part in like his wedding and like plan things. Like you planning like the little kickback y'all gonna do and stuff. And
yeah, we're gonna do it after the wedding.
Yeah.
At first I wanted to do a party bus, and then like we go to a club, and I was like, no, we can't, social distancing, right. And then all that stuff. But the whole part of being a part and then being the best man is really fun. Along with that, I've been kind of talking to someone. We are not like exclusively like officially dating, and she's gonna join me at the wedding, and we're gonna spend the week together, the whole week. And so I'm excited about that. Like literally, I've been like cleaning up my apartment and like
so she don't
doing the
think
things that guys
filthy.
do when they got a woman to impress at their house for like the first time. You know, make sure everything clean and let me move my dirty drawers, you know, just like all that stuff. Like, cause my apartment looked like a bachelor pad, not in a bad way. I think I'm a pretty clean guy for a guy to be a guy, and I usually get compliments. But I went and did like the extra mile kind of thing. Like, all right, let me make sure my P's and Q's are like wrapped up. But it's going to be really fun. I kind of mapped out our week. So everything we're going to do is, like, we're still going to do stuff when we go out, but social distance. So, like, we're going to go fishing one day.
Aww.
We're going to go to either the zoo or the aquarium, whichever one is open. I know.
Oh, my God,
yeah,
yes.
I think they're both open.
I want to go. Dang, can I be a third wheel?
What else we're gonna do? We talked about maybe doing like an impromptu road trip to Philly, just because, whatever. So that's fun. I'm excited, but kind of nervous. And Sharon, I don't be clubbing. It's just that I know my friend. He likes the club. He likes to party occasionally. So if it's for him, I got to show out.
Right.
I can't just. I got to step out my comfort zone, because if it was the other way around, he'd do it for me.
Right.
So no, I don't really be clubbing. But yeah, that's really the good things that I've got going on and that I'm excited about right now.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds real good. Shoot, I want to go to the zoo. I want to go to the zoo, goddamn. But you know what? I'm not gonna lie. Playing Animal Crossing really got me want to go to somebody's museum or aquarium. I'm so serious. Like, that game really was kind of like life outside of life since we've been in the house. And it's crazy because like I'm hella introverted, so I don't even know why I'm tripping. I don't go nowhere anyways, but like just the fact that I know that it's not the same makes me feel like, dang, I'm missing out on these opportunities that I really should have had all this time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dang.
The funny thing is, like, I'd be complaining about not being able to go nowhere, but if it wasn't in quarantine, I wouldn't be going anywhere.
That's exactly.
I'd be doing the same thing I'm doing now, sitting in the house, binge watching shows on Netflix.
Exactly, because like, when I met my boyfriend, I've known him since I was a kid. But when we reconnected about a month and a half ago, we were actually gonna go out on a date, because that was before the surge in COVID happened in Texas, and things were kind of looking okay-ish. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then, like, literally the day we were supposed to go out to this restaurant, the governor of Texas made a decree that, they were going to close down the bars, and that they were going to decrease the occupancy of restaurants. So I was like, I don't feel comfortable. So we haven't gone out yet. Like, we kind of went on a pseudo date. Like, we went to the park. We had snow cones. That was pretty lit. I guess that's a date. Cute. But, we just kind of did it because he was kind of stressed out about some stuff. And so I was like, let's go to the park. So we did that, and it was actually really fun. I guess that still counts as kind of a date, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
But anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about our summers. So, teachers, despite all of the crap that we get, we do get something called summers off. If you consider it that, I guess, in the midst of our current climate. I just feel like everything is so topsy-turvy. It's like, is it really a summer, or was it like some other stuff? I don't know. But I was able to make the most of it for the most part. But, so how was your summer? Like, did you do anything this summer? Anything interesting? Anything cool?
I didn't do anything that's like too interesting, but actually I did do some interesting things, at least for me. So one thing I got myself into with my son, with Chase, Chase, is that we started going hiking. So we would go find these. We would go to like parks in the area, and if they had trails to hike, we would go. And it was something new because I'd never been hiking before. I never had anyone take me. No one's taken Chase, so we'd go. In particular, one of the paths we hiked is actually like by a small beach, like not a full beach, but like a little mini one. So that was a like nice sight to see. And there's a fishing spot over there, which I think we're gonna go. So I've been doing that. That's been fun. Of course, I spend every summer. I spend a sizable amount of time with my son during the summer. What else? I went to Philly. For a protest. There was a protest with this musician, a trombonist named Jeff Bradshaw. He's a professional musician, and a performing musician. And he wanted to do this clarion call it was originally for Breonna Taylor, but it was for all of the people who were, affected by victims of, police brutality over the past months and years.
Right.
So he had these like various pop-ups where he'd go. He's from Philly, but he started in Philly where he'd have these things where he'd call musicians to come and we'd play music for protest. and like there were hundreds of musicians. There was some articles about it, and we'd come up and play. Of course, we're trying to social distance as best as possible. We were in masks too, so if I wasn't playing, I had my mask on. And it's just like us fellowshipping, and promoting social justice through music.
That's beautiful.
Which was fun. There are some videos and stuff on my Facebook page too.
That's beautiful.
It was really fun. And he's from Philly, so he did a few in Philly, and he did one in DC. I didn't go to the one in DC, even though that was closer to me than going to Philly. But he's going to do more up and down the East Coast, and I want to try to go to more of them because it's just a good experience. It's fun to network. Right. I've met like professional musicians. Some of the people who follow like gaming music, there's a trombone guy, not a trombone, this saxophone guy called Leo P, and he does like those weird growly sounds and does video game music. He was at one of them, and it was, like I said, it's just a good experience. It was like probably the highlight of my summer because I had never, I don't even like playing in public for people. My thing with music is like, I like doing stuff in the background. So I like creating music. I like conducting the students and teaching. Yeah. I don't really like to be a performer out in front. So that was a thing. I conquered my fear. I went and played in front. I soloed and improvised.
Oh, wow.
But it was in the name for a good cause. So it was like something I wanted to do. So, right. But that was really fun and probably my summer highlight. Of course, I talked about the wedding. I've been gaming a little bit more this summer than I have like all year, even in quarantine. Like I've been gaming more in general, but usually I spend my time kind of like complaining about being bored and complaining about being bored and then saying, oh, I need to get started on my teaching stuff so I'll be ready when school starts and not doing anything.
Exactly.
So I've been doing a bit more gaming. I've been playing Fall Guys on Steam. Hopefully me and Nia get to play again. I've been doing a lot of Pokemon. For people who probably know, I like to play Pokemon competitively, or I'm learning how to play Pokemon competitively. So like breeding and all that stuff, and making teams and all that good stuff. So I've been doing that on Pokemon Sword and Shield over the summer, and it takes a lot of work to do that, like to make the team and breed the Pokemon, do it for hours until you find the perfect one. It's a big thing. You need to be patient for that. So I'm going to try to keep my gaming momentum going on. I beat Mario Rabbids finally. It took forever. See? I mean, it's a good game. It's just that by the time, I don't know, I just stopped playing it one day. And then we've been playing Dauntless and Rogue Company together.
Oh, my God. That's been my summer game. Oh, my God. But that's my everyday game. Let's be fair.
Who said that? Who said another Pokemon player? Who's that?
My friend Sakurai on Twitch.
Who?
My friend Sakurai on Twitch.
It was on Twitch. I was looking for where it was.
You know what? I have Pokemon because my friend, you know Sunita, right?
I know Sunita.
You met Sunita. She sent me Pokemon Shield, and I still need to play it. Shout out to Lady Infamous for hosting the stream. Thank you so much, lady.
Sakurai, you can send me your information. I'll play with, like, we can battle. I'm learning, though, so I'm, like, pretty bad. So if you want to, like, kind of, help me, like, learn the ropes, then I'd be all for it.
Yeah, Sakurai is cool people. He'll help you.
So, yeah, but that's basically it for me.
Going back to the thing that you said about going to the protest in Philly, like, I'm glad that you had a chance to do that because I remember, like, it was like episode 2, I think, of Teachers in Quarantine, and we talked about everything that was going on in regards to, like the protests and, topics about racism and police brutality. And I remember, like, we would just have, like, some topics, like, outside of, like, streams and stuff, like, we would just have, like, our one-on-one conversations, and you just kind of felt so frustrated because you're like, what can I do? Like, what can I do? Like, is there anything that I could do? Like, I feel like I need to do something. And then for you to find that avenue where you get to express yourself and then also do it through music, like,
yes,
that had to have been like a special experience.
It was a load off my shoulders. It was like a weight off my shoulders. Like, I really felt good about doing it. And, like, because, like, at one point I was considering going out in the middle when it was, like, at its worst, like, the riots and risking it all.
I remember that.
Like, I was so serious about it. So it was great that I got to do it in a way that was safe. creative and got to use my talents for sure. Because like you said, I was really stressed out about it.
You were, and that's good. That's really good. A lot of my activism has been through a computer screen. I've been making videos and stuff and talking about it and social media, and that's my way of spreading awareness and talking about those types of topics. Because, you know, Miss Rona is out there, and I'm paranoid, but I feel like everybody has their own lane, and everybody has their own gift and their own skills that they can bring to bringing awareness to this type of stuff and spreading knowledge about racism and spreading knowledge about how this stuff actually impacts us as a community. So it's awesome that you found that outlet. Like, that's awesome. But I don't want to get too heavy because we got some other stuff to talk about that's also quite heavy. But not as heavy as that, but definitely some very serious stuff. So a lot of you guys are not teachers, so it's kind of like we have to frame this stuff for you guys so that you kind of have an idea of what's going on within the education system and how that is being exacted within our local governments, the federal government, and how that affects us as teachers. We're going to talk about that. But one of the things that we did want to talk about was classroom management and the community of our classrooms and how that looks in a virtual climate. So Jerome and I have both experienced that to a degree. Jerome is about to experience it in a different way in these coming weeks. But for me, back in March, it was around like the middle of March, we had our spring break. And then after spring break, we had, you know, notification from our government that all the schools needed to be shut down and that we would need to finish the rest of the semester online. Because it was supposed to be a couple of weeks online, then a couple more weeks online, and they eventually said, you know what, the rest of the semester is going to be online only. And so I want to talk about that experience and how it impacted us when we had to do it like pretty much on a whim, because nobody could have ever expected that that was a thing that was going to happen. And then how we think that is going to be when we experience virtual learning with a group of completely new students for this upcoming school year that's coming up. And I guess I can start on that one because I teach little bitties. Y'all know I'm a kindergarten teacher. And a lot of things that we do as kindergarten teachers are hands-on. They're one-to-one. We use a lot of manipulatives as in like we use like objects to quantify numbers, and you know we use like magnetic letters because it's helpful for little bitties to see and touch and also, you know, do. So a lot of the things that we do requires, you know, human interaction and exchanging things and sharing things. And having to go from in-person learning to virtual learning was very hard because of that. And also because as a kindergarten teacher, a lot of the communication that I have with my parents had to go through, with my students, had to go through the parents because my kids are little. They don't have phones. They can't get in a computer by themselves and type in a password. They don't have those skills yet because they're so little. And so, you know, that was definitely a challenge for me. I feel like the biggest challenge during that was that not everybody was submitting work virtually because a lot of our kiddos are so little, and everything that they do, like their parents have to help them do it. And obviously, you know, a lot of families were still have like, I just give more of put more of a magnifying glass on what my district looks like compared to a lot of people's districts. So I work in a district where about 90, and probably I'm pretty sure the percentage is higher, about 90% or higher of our students live in poverty, and a lot of them don't have access to things like computers or internet, or if they do, it's not very good. So when our district decided to do virtual learning, there were some issues in the beginning with equity, with getting people access to computers, getting people access to internet. And then because of the nature of the way that a lot of our students were. I guess because a lot of the reason why our kiddos are in the position that they are is because a lot of their parents have to go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people who a lot of my parents are essential workers. I guess that's the best way that I could put it. And a lot of essential places were still open. So it would be very difficult for our families to get off work and then have to do their schoolwork with their kids, or there were issues with the computers, there was issues with internet. Like, there was so many issues that impacted my community that probably didn't impact some others. And then on top of that, my kids being little, so even if their parents had to be at work or they couldn't help, they couldn't do anything even if they wanted to, because they're so little. They can't spell, they can't type in Class Dojo, they can't type in, they can't do it. Everything they needed to do, a parent needed to help them with. So that was a big struggle for me with virtual learning. And I feel like because of that, it did affect the community aspect of my class. Because, especially for little bitties, their attention spans are so short.
Yeah. If
they don't see you every day, I don't want to say it stresses them out, because I'm pretty sure some of them are happy to be at home with their families, but it does definitely change the dynamic. Like, I remember, I had kids who would be so excited to see me when they came into school, but then after so many weeks of virtual learning, it's like they forgot who I was. Mm-hmm. Kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know if you could attest to that, but I feel like that did kind of affect the community aspect of my class, because I feel like it would be different if they were like big kids and they could get on and talk to me or call me, but they couldn't. So it's like some of them I didn't talk to anymore ever after that. You know what I mean? So that was hard. But I'll stop talking because I feel like I've been talking a lot. But we could talk about how that was for you. Like, how was that for you?
So
at the end of last semester.
So to frame my teaching experience in my old school is that basically my school that I taught in was in a more affluent area. Still had a bunch of, it still was a pretty big minority area, but it was mostly a suburban area. Most of the kids are not poor. They have things. However, our virtual learning kind of started like yours, but was different. So for me, I didn't start teaching anything virtually until a month into virtual learning. I didn't start teaching anything until April. We were told not to do anything. They said, don't worry about it. Maybe check up on some students, but, don't give them anything. Then when we got to the point where they're like, all right, now you guys can teach. At that point, kind of the kids were already used to not having to do anything for my class, because I teach music, I teach band, so it's an extracurricular. It didn't help that my content, and probably I think all of the content, but more so my content, it didn't have to be done. They couldn't fail, unless they were already failing, so they couldn't fail for the rest of the year. So I feel like I lost students who were already disinterested. They kind of figured themselves out. And then the students who were interested, but, they kind of needed that more in person, or that more of that push, they had already zoned out to the point where they didn't have it. And then if you had parents who, are essential workers or who are working and they couldn't, really monitor you, or they couldn't monitor their students that well because of whatever they had going on, they slipped under my radar. So I found that the students I did tend to get into my virtual lessons were students who were already, they are either already like, man, band's my favorite class. I love Mr. Queen. He the dude. Yeah. Or their parents were on it, which still was a good amount of people. But then I noticed, after the first 2 weeks, that enrollment declined, because we started at the last week of April. Right. And so we're in May. At this time, for us, school ends in June.
Right.
Because we start at the end. We start in September. So students are starting to check out because they know summer's closed. Summer's closed. Summer's closed. So they've been on summer essentially now for 5 months.
Right.
But for those who are still coming and paying attention, they kind of zoned out a little bit.
Because after a while, it's kind of like that out of sight, out of mind type thing. It's like, if you're like, I guess even with bigger kids too, since you teach bigger kids, it's like, if they're not in your face all day, every day, they're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, and then middle school, because middle school is like that turning point in the middle. They want to be treated like like high schoolers, but they still have elementary mindsets.
Right.
So it's that leverage, in between it. So that's kind of how it was, like, as far as the whole climate of it. It was either we don't have to do it, or I don't care anymore. And then for my dedicated students were my dedicated students, and
right.
So that sucked. It didn't help that even us as in teachers, being home, didn't have all the resources we needed.
True.
I was lucky that I was smart and I thought ahead a bit, where I took a good amount of some of my resources at home just in case. I was like, oh, let me take some of this big stuff home. But I still didn't have everything I needed to have the best of a class that I would want. So that's kind of how the climate of my classrooms were virtually. It was kind of like stagnant.
Mine was hella stagnant. I remember telling you this too, Jerome. Getting on those Zoom calls every week and nobody shows up. Maybe 1 or 2 kids shows up.
Yep. I was there too.
Break my heart, because I'm just like, we're doing so much to try to maintain an education for kids, and like, for a lot of people, it's either they don't care or it's just not sustainable for them. And it's just like, it just makes you feel away, man.
Yeah, no, I'm there. And like, I got to a part where like, oh, what's up, DJ DZ? I didn't see you there. I got to a point where it was like, forget whatever I had planned. Just come in and check up and talk with me.
Right, exactly.
Let me know how you guys are doing. And some of them really did. I had like a few kids that were coming religiously. They'd come in, we talk about just stuff, anime, video games, life. How do you think high school's going to be?
Right.
But it. So can I segue into the second part of that?
Yes.
So like, the part that gets for me is like, when we teach, there's a social emotional aspect and a community aspect that is like hard to get in the virtual environment.
Yes.
So like,
yes,
kids play off of body language, tone, and eye contact. But there's also the aspect of like physical touch and being in that same proximity that is missing in virtual learning.
Yes.
That if I didn't have it when we started, I don't know if those kids would have been engaged with me, the ones that weren't even engaged with me.
Right.
Because like, in virtual learning, like we were talking about it earlier, I teach middle school, the 6th graders are still basically 5th graders. They want to come up and give you a hug. Hey, Mr. Queen, how you doing? Or, hey, Miss Pierce. They want to give you a hug,
right.
or they want to give you a high five, a handshake, and
right, and like, what is that gonna look like, right? Like,
right, you can feel that missing. Like, sure, you can give eye contact through video, or you can just tone, but it feels different. What it feels to you is different,
right?
And that being said, I'm concerned about how it's going to look virtually with new students that you don't know. Building those relationships and that stuff that kind of needs your senses in the real world.
Right.
They just don't portray the same over video. Like, right. The school that I'm going to is in a weird thing where they've had a band director that was really fired, just literally fired. The next band director that came in, they didn't like him, and he almost kind of destroyed the program. Well, I don't want to say let me not say that. The program went downhill because I guess they weren't on the same page with him, because he wasn't a bad guy. So I'm not going to say like he killed the program, because he didn't. And so I'm coming in and I have to like build the momentum and rebuild the trust in the students, and that's hard,
to do, especially virtually. That's gonna be
right. And I'm a person that like I very much interact with my students. I like to talk to them. I like to laugh with them, and I'm one out pull a student, out, or all that stuff that you can't do in the virtual world in regards to like your classroom management, your climate. Sure, classroom management can be easier because you can just mute students down, but it's
but classroom management is so much more than just trying to make students behave. It's everything that you said, like building a rapport with your students, making sure that your classroom is set up in a way that all of your students feel like comfortable, that they have their own space, that they can be, free to be themselves in your room based on how you are as a teacher and how you fashion your classroom and how you fashion the guidelines of your class. So it's like there's so many different layers to this, and it's like we're gonna talk about reopening schools in a little bit, but we just kind of wanted to set the tone for that, because I do think in a way us talking about this, there is an argument to be made about whether or not schools should be reopened for that reason, but we'll talk about it. I don't want to jump the gun. I'm sorry.
Dang, what was I going to say? Well, and for me, like being a music teacher, like for anyone that's ever been in band in middle school or high school or even elementary school, the band room is kind of like, if you're the second home, just like the gym is for an athlete.
Right.
And so a lot of the kids find refuge in the band room. Your band director is like that surrogate mom or that surrogate dad,
right?
Or whatever. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to recreate that. One thing I've been looking into that I've seen my peers do is they've been using like the Bitmoji craze, and they've been creating like these virtual backdrops for when they start back virtually, so they can set up their band room and it looks like these Bitmoji kind of things. And while I'm not a fan of
I've seen people do that.
I'm not a fan of the Bitmoji thing, but I'm thinking about, I am going to recreate a Bitmoji backdrop for my room just to kind of get that vibe. So, you don't have to look at, my curtains or my blinds in the back. You can at least get close to it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm just nervous on how I'm going to build those relationships. I'm trying to think of ways to do that. It's hard, and it doesn't feel the same.
I just don't even know. I don't even know what my semester's going to look like. Because I guess we can go ahead and jump into that part.
Yeah.
Since we're kind of saying it without saying it. So, how our districts are planning their reopening. I think Jerome's been pretty clear with what his district's doing, but if you want to expound upon that, you can.
Yeah. I do. So my district is we're reopening on virtually. The caveat, and I pulled up the PowerPoint just to make sure I did read it right, is that we're starting virtually and we're starting a week later than we normally do. By quote unquote by fall 2020, by October 16th, there's supposed to be an update on the next steps with the hybrid model. So they want the plan is that in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, they want to move from being fully virtual to some hybrid model where kids come to school part-time or certain days a week, A, B, something where all the students are not in at once, but it works with the teachers.
Yes.
I don't know how to feel about that. I'm a little disappointed, and I'm not going to take up all the time because I'm gonna let Nia explain her situation, and then we can think tank it a bit more. But I don't think that we should be looking at going to be hybrid this early. There's no reason. Like, cases are going up everywhere. In my district in Baltimore, matter of fact, a few weeks ago they shut down all indoor dining after they had opened it back up. They shut it down. They're like, all right, back to outdoor only dining. I think they opened it limited capacity, I think 25% now. But obviously we don't have this thing contained yet. Why are you, did you make it the title? Why are you making us guinea pigs?
I didn't make that the title. I should have. But
like, why are you making us guinea pigs? Like, yes, I do want to get back into my classroom. I do want to, go back to the bad performances
more
and
than
bad
to be
practices.
back in my classroom, but I want my students and my students' families safe most of all.
And I want myself safe.
And myself, exactly. Like, I want myself safe, but they have families too,
Mm-hmm.
Like, students are not... Anyway, I'll let you continue.
But, yeah, I'm a little confused. I'm not confused, but I'm a little disappointed, and I'm hoping that the update they give is an update that they will be going virtual for a bit longer, and then we can see what it's looking like come 2021.
Right?
Because every other district around my area is literally doing that. They're starting virtually. They're going to be virtually at least until January, the third quarter for us.
Right.
So that's how we're rolling back. What about you, Mia? What you got going on?
Well,
Yeah.
So you guys know that I live in the good old state of Texas. And yeah. All right. So I'll just start from the top. So in the beginning of July, the Texas Education Agency made a statement that all Texas teachers will be going back to school in person for the fall semester, right? But parents have a choice on how they want their kids to go back to school, which is fine. Parents should have that choice. So they said that parents have the choice of either in-person learning or virtual learning, right? So, of course, in the state of Texas, I don't know how it is in other states, but in the state of Texas, whatever the Texas Education Agency says is the law. We got to do it. We have to adhere to their guidelines, their decrees for what they feel like education should look like in the state of Texas. Okay.
So can I expound on my part of that when you're done? Just when you're done.
Okay. And so obviously my district is adhering to that. Later, the governor of Texas did state that whatever your local health organization says is what goes. The health organization in my area is still determining whether or not it's safe to go back to school. They're still looking at the data of how COVID-related cases affects children, because there's still not a lot of data out there, about how it affects children. But I guess until the health department says something, that's what we're doing, right? So of course my district is adhering to what TEA has said. So what my district is doing is that, of course, all teachers are going to be going back to school in person, whether they're doing virtual learning or in-person learning. I still don't know what that looks like. But one thing that let me say this before I talk about my specific district. So my district, they're adhering to the TEA standards of what education is supposed to look like here in the fall. Okay. And so, like I said, the choices are in-person, virtual, or a hybrid situation similar to what Jerome's district is doing. But the hybrid situation is only available for kids who are in 7th grade through 12. So if you are kinder through 6th grade, then your only choices are in-person or online, okay? And so one thing that my district did to try to help circumvent this, because like I said, what TEA says is law. They can't not do it. So my district, because I love my superintendent, they actually did send a survey to all teachers and staff and asked them what they felt comfortable doing. So we had a choice of either we wanted to do in-person learning, we wanted to do virtual learning, or we would be okay doing whatever. I said I'll be okay doing whatever you need me to do, because ultimately my hands are tied. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just thankful that my district at least gave teachers a voice in that respect, because I couldn't imagine being in a district where they didn't at least give the teachers some say so on what they felt comfortable doing when they came back to school. Because, there's a lot of teachers who would love nothing more to be in their classroom, but they probably have health issues. They might have diabetes or, heart problems, and they don't want to put themselves at risk. They might be living with a husband or a wife or a parent who has problems, or a child even, because children could have comorbidities also. So, there's so many things that could go into that, and I'm just glad that my district has put us in that situation where we have a voice. I don't know what I think that I'm going to be doing in-person learning, but I don't know what that's going to look like for me. I don't know if I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to be doing in-person learning from, 7 to 3:30, and then after that, I got to do some virtual stuff. I don't know what my year is going to look like. Tomorrow is my first day going back to work, and hopefully all of that is going to be clarified for me. I don't know if some of the teachers are going to be online or some of the teachers are going to be in person. Because we did recently get our class rosters, and I have 10 children on my roster right now. They have to keep the capacity low because of the situation up to this point. And I think that was a district decision. I don't think that's something that TEA even thought. I think my district made it a point, like, if we're going back to school, class size is going to be little. And I thank my district for that. So, at this point in time, I have 10 children on my roster. So, that makes me feel a little bit less anxious. But still, 10 children in one space is still 10 too many, in my opinion. But at least, they're trying to work around what TEA has ordained. Right. But, so... like I said, I don't know what I'm walking into. All I can tell you is what we have planned up to this point. The state of Texas, the governor has said that they're going to be sending all these amounts of PPE to all the schools in Texas to keep teachers and staff safe. We'll see what that looks like, because my district has said that masks are required for kiddos from 3rd grade and up, but kinder through 2nd, it is not required for our kiddos to wear masks because it's hard to keep littles in a mask, and I agree. I couldn't imagine having to keep 5 and 6-year-olds in a mask all day. Can't imagine it. But anyway, that's what my district has decided, because what else they gonna do?
So let me I forgot to add that one part. So the Maryland State Department of Education, which is what governs the school districts in our state, a while ago they gave out this big document that was a guideline back when it first started of what schools need to be like in reopening. And it's the same phase idea that everyone else had. The cool thing about what Maryland State Department of Education did is that they gave autonomy to how the individual districts opened up to themselves.
See, that's a blessing.
So it's a blessing in disguise. It's good and it's bad. It's good because a lot of schools are actually choosing, I think almost all of them choosing to start virtually. The bad is if you're like my district and you want to try to have a hybrid model by October.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Interestingly enough, there were some, private schools, parochial schools, Montessori, Catholic schools, and all that stuff, they're not necessarily governed by all the same laws as public schools.
Right.
Because they're not publicly funded.
Right.
I think they still have to follow like some of the same guidelines, but I don't think they're completely, I forget exactly 100% how it works.
Right, it's the same here.
In one county, some of those private schools decided, hey, we're going to open up virtually. And the governor of Maryland, and I don't like the governor of Maryland, and I won't go on my rant on why I don't like him.
Oh, I don't like my governor either. We're in the same boat.
But we're going to leave it there. He passed an executive order that told these schools that they can't do that. Now, while I actually supported the decision, like, okay, yeah, no schools should be opening virtually, he overstepped his boundary as a governor in that one instance. So it's like hard. It's really hard to leverage like what to do, because okay, you can give these guidelines, but at what point, how it's so hard to kind of balance how okay it is.
Right.
Like, and I I don't think any school should open up in person either. But when you start crossing those boundaries where you're stepping into private entities making their own decisions, it gets really crazy.
But at the same time, I will say that in regards to that, if public schools are going back in person and then private schools are not going back in person, then it sounds like an elitist issue. So like, I understand in that regard, but at the same time, you know, if they're not governed by the same laws, I could understand why that is also an issue.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was my big thing. I wanted to say how the Department of Education for Maryland, how they decided to disseminate their duties. They actually they're allowing the individual districts to handle their own thing. They're what is that term? Delegating.
Right.
They gave out the big document. They delegated everything else to the individual districts, which I wholeheartedly support. So that was it. That's what I wanted to say. That was kind of different from yours.
Right. Like, because with my situation, if the health department says it's not safe, then they got to shut it down.
Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how our health department plays a role in it. I think they just, give out, what the general guidelines are,
mm-hmm.
and we're supposed to follow the general guidelines, but I don't know if they're, like, strict about it.
Yeah.
The other thing is about schools reopening and why this is just so weird for me, and this is still in the opening school, but I don't know, because I've started my training for my new district, and we started our new teacher, we call it New Teacher Summit Institute, New Teacher Orientation, whatever you want to call it,
right.
Same thing. And opening schools just virtually or in person is going to be crazy. We did these trainings, we were all virtual, so we got to do our trainings from home. That's why I have this little polo shirt on to look, I have on shorts under this, but to look on top professional.
You do look hella professional.
It was just full of technological failures. And the first thing I thought in my mind was like, this is going to be the first day of online classes for me.
Yes.
Where, kids who don't have the bandwidth, they are going to sound like Megatron and robots. And then
they're going to sound like Autobots.
Then the program's going to decide to crash, or then there's going to be like some hidden limit. It's so many caveats to this, even virtually,
right?
That makes it hard. So like school reopening, virtually is still not easy.
It's still not.
Like from 8 to 4, I was in these sessions, and for like from 12 to, no, not from 12, from about 1:30 to like 3:40, I couldn't get into any of the sessions. Because Zoom was full, or they didn't start the Zoom meeting. Like it just was crazy. And they were like, "Oh, we're trying to troubleshoot. And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what we're going to be doing the first day of school." I feel like I almost feel like we should even push it back even more. But I don't know what is a right or wrong way, for reopening schools right now. Like virtually is going to be hell. It was already hell. Excuse me. Well.
That's fine.
And,
you can say the hell.
What we did last year was already like hard. It was difficult. It was new.
Difficult.
And now we have a little bit more experience with it, but it's still hard because now, last year, it was, all right, just do what you can. This year they're going to give you mandates and say,
exactly.
They're going to give you these strict rules. It's going to get so much harder for us.
Exactly.
But the use of technology and how technology works and interacts won't get any easier because people's environments aren't changing. What my district did is that when I went up I had to do fingerprints. What they did was that they were like, oh, if you are a student, or a family who doesn't have good internet access, or you don't have a computer, or even if you just needed it, you could come up Tuesdays or Thursdays and sign up for a Wi-Fi hotspot and a laptop.
Right.
And it was good. All students could get it. I don't think it really mattered what their situation was. I think all could get it, but my Chase doesn't go to school in the district, so I did not solicit the services. But I can imagine, even with that, it's going to be tough. I can imagine, we get on Zoom or we get on Microsoft Teams, and Teams is really close to Discord if people have used Microsoft Teams. It works really similar.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine getting on teams with 30, students and it crashing.
Right. So you're gonna
Or
still. So let me ask you a question. You're still gonna have the same amount of kids that you would expect to have in person virtually?
I don't know yet. I don't have anything for my rosters yet. So I don't know what my class loads are.
That sounds.
But I'm assuming because like last year I ended the year with all of my kids in one class. All of my kids together.
Right.
So I'm just assuming they'll give them that virtually.
That's so crazy.
It's one thing to be in a Discord call with a bunch of people and if somebody and we're not showing video because we're playing games. But if you're in a call and everybody's showing their video, everybody's talking at once, and it's more than 10 15 people, that gets really hard. It gets confusing, and I'm overwhelmed already. And I feel bad for the school systems because it's damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Exactly.
You open in person, all the teachers are going to hate you because you're putting our lives at risk.
Exactly.
You open virtually, we're still going to hate you because there's no amount of technology you can give us to really make this easier.
Exactly.
Because like today for my session, we had a session in Microsoft Teams. We had sessions in Zoom. We had to go to like different websites. I still got to register for a website from a session I missed, and they were like, "Oh, make sure you go watch the video and register for this session." And it's like, okay.
There's so much that goes into this,
and it's not doing it myself that's the hard part. It's when you are the person that has to give it to 130, how many ever students you teach, a day. Because then you got to tell students, all right, well, students, in order to be successful in my virtual classroom, here you got to have a Teams account. You got to be able to use your Zoom. And then, we're in band and we're playing band virtually. Well, you got to have a Smart Music account because that's the only way I'm going to be able to hear you,
Right.
Play your music, and that's the closest thing you'll get to having a band. And then it's like, oh, well, you want us to write an assignment? Now Google Docs, now, or whatever, Microsoft Word. Then it's like, I don't know, I'm just going down a rabbit hole of how deep that can get.
Right.
That just makes this hard. And then, like I said, the districts are going to get tough. Like, and for my district, I don't know what your district is like. 70% assessment, 30% participation.
See, I don't know. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I'm like you. Like when we had to do this, when all this kind of started happening, it was more of like a grace before grades type of situation.
Yeah.
Like you just focusing on keeping communication with your families and the students, and keeping up with them and making sure that they're okay and connecting with them on a different level than just teaching. So like going into this new school year, I don't know what that's gonna look like for me, but that's crazy. It's like, so you're going into this year, you're still expected to be as effective virtually as you would be in person. I just don't know how that.
Oh, let me put the icing on the cake.
Ugh.
We're still getting evaluated virtually, and in my district that I work in particularly, our raises are tied to our evaluations as teachers.
Oh my goodness.
So you don't get a good evaluation, you might not get your raise next year.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible. That's terrible. See, now
And then
I can't wait until I get the real tea on what I'm actually doing so that I could put more into this conversation, because like I said, tomorrow is my first day. I don't know what that's going to look like for me.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I still don't really know everything yet.
Right.
I'm going into meetings and we're finding out. They keep, all I keep hearing is, keep this link. This is a resource, And I'm like, so how's that going to be if, let's say, we do open up by October 16th or whatever they're talking about, and we have to have evaluations when we're, just getting into actual classroom routines? Like, how is that going to work? You're going to evaluate me in my class when we've, never seen each other in person and interacted? The kids are excited to see each other. I'm excited to see them. Like, we don't have any kind of structure really in place yet.
Right. That's crazy.
And then I didn't even talk about, like, I've just been talking about teaching in general, really. But I teach band. 90, let me be a little bit more conservative. About 80% of my students rent and borrow instruments from the school.
Yes.
I have to give instruments to students. And I won't even know if they've played. Like, first of all, I don't know if these instruments even work, so I have to play them for some of them, because some of them are going to be old in bad condition. We don't have some of the best instruments. Then I have to say, all right, I played this and it works. Here, kid, I can't do that. That instrument has to be quarantined for 5 days before I can give it to someone. Because literally that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
Well, we can't, so instruments are like fragile. Like, even though they're made of metal and they're made of, you know, most of them are made of wet metal, some are made of wood. They're fragile, so you can't take a Clorox wipe and wipe an instrument down. It could tarnish the metal.
Right.
You know, if it's a wooden clarinet or a wooden bassoon or a plastic instrument, it could warp the plastic.
Right.
So it's like, you can't physically clean a saxophone or a clarinet or a flute. You can't, like, put it in a bathtub, because the pads that hold those instruments together are made of like
cork.
special material.
It's like the little cork material, right?
You're talking about the actual corks, but I'm talking about the pads inside of the that close when you close the instrument. Gotcha. There are pads inside. Those pads, if they touch water, they fall off. They're not easy to glue in. And despite popular to contrary belief, music educators, when we go to school, there's not a class on how to fix instruments when they fuck up. I'm sorry.
No, that's real. This is real tea from a real teacher talking about this topic, since ain't nobody talking to us about it. That's real tea.
And then you give it to a kid, they were like, hey, yo, Mr. Queen, you know, I was just playing my instrument and now my saxophone was curved like a J. Well, it looks like a letter L now. What? Like, if, you know, virtually, like in person, I would still be very upset, but I could deal with it in person.
Right.
Virtually, I'm gonna be staring at you through a screen, and I'm gonna be pulling the non-existent hairs out of my head. Because it's like, how? And then, like, even going for it as far as content specific for me, you know, how am I gonna give out music to students? You know,
right? How
am I gonna students who can't afford to buy their own reeds or instrument material? You know, usually they come and get a reed from a teacher. Hey, Mr. Queen, my reed broke. My mama said she ain't buy me no more reeds until Christmas. Then I can be like, here. How am I gonna do that? I'm not driving to these kids' houses to give them instruments.
Right.
Like,
there's so many unknowns.
It's just so many things about it. And then once we come back to hybrid model, like,
shout out to Tundex for blessing the stream. Tundex is also a fellow teacher. I would love to have him on the podcast one day. The homie Jamal, he's also a teacher. Yeah. I would love to have him on the podcast one of these good days. But, like, all of this stuff there's so many unknowns. Like, and I know a lot of my teacher friends are trying to go into this new year with, like, a fresh attitude and be positive. And, like, normally I'm a very positive person. Like, I'm normally looking forward to going back to school. Like, I'm the type of teacher that, like weeks before the school year, I'm in Target at the dollar zone or whatever they call it. looking for all the cute little things I could put in my classroom. I'm at the dollar store looking for borders and all the cutesy little things I could put on my bulletin board. Like, I'm that teacher. But this year, every time I go buy school supplies and school things, I'm just like...
And then, can I get my one more thing, and then I'm going to let you have it? Yes. I got one more thing, and I know Jamal will understand this one. There have been about 2 or 3 studies that test how chorus and band, instrumental music, and vocal music, how they will work in virtual environment, or not in virtual environments, but in person. Like, how much social distancing do I have to do to play my trombone in class and not spill whatever sickness I got on the back of somebody's head?
Right.
And all of these, and so in July, 2 of them came back with preliminary results. And none of them gave any concrete, like, solutions or answers. They were like, oh, well, you know, you can put a mask on, not a mask, but you can put instrument covers on top of your bells. And it's like, no. And it's like, oh, you can, like, none of these were actual solutions. They were just more bandages that we already have.
Right.
So, like, because in band, you know, we use sound and we use air to make instruments, to make the air go through the instrument, the air travels with the sound. Now, that means that all of those particles that are coming, like, most of it gets trapped in the instrument, but enough of it can get out and get on somebody that you can get sick. You know? Like, it's no coincidence that a lot of times people in performing ensembles are a lot of times sick at the same time. These studies are going on, and it's like, oh, well, not only do you have to sit your kids 6 feet apart, you might have to sit them an additional 3 feet apart depending on their instrument.
And it's like, there's a lot of freaking kids. Like, who has the space for that? You have to be on a literal football field in order to make that happen.
Right. And, don't get me talking about the marching band. Listen, you about to make me... I'm not trying to have that rant, because I've been banging my head against my desk since those studies came out. It's no easy way for us to really do this. Oh, see, I don't know what my district's doing, Jamal, because I'm new, but... because you're in Texas, so you're starting in person with Nia, but we're starting virtually. I have no idea what's going to happen when we switch to in-person or hybrid model. They're probably going to ask us to play outside, but in Maryland, it starts to get chilly in October. It starts to get cold in November. We're not playing outside. I'm not playing outside. No one's getting sick.
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I want them to play music. My kids, I know they want to play music. I've had a student already find me, and they don't even know me yet. They found me on social media because they desperately want to be back in band. They want a teacher. But I don't know how I'm going to do this without, you know, seemingly risking their lives and putting them in danger or putting myself in danger.
Right.
And I have a son to live for. I have hopefully many, many years of teaching to live for.
Right.
Right. And I don't want to risk them. I don't want to risk myself. Anyway. My opinions on school reopening is that I'm going to have a heart attack before the first day because I don't know what. Oh, you're not starting in person. Okay. Oh, his district is going online. Cool. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So he's in a similar situation to you.
Okay. Is he? Are you in? He's in Texas.
He's in
too,
Texas,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, but that's my opinion. Like, I'm so head over heels. Like, the virtual part is one thing. Then once it gets to hybrid, which I completely forgot about until we just started talking, is a completely different beast. So what is your thing on this?
So I'm pretty sure that I'm starting in person. I teach kindergarten. A lot of what we do in kindergarten is hands-on. A lot of the things that we do are using manipulatives and things to quantify our thoughts. I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing this in person. I already have a roster. I told you, I've already gotten my roster. I have 10 babies in my roster. And I just got to figure out what my classroom's going to look like this year. Like, I know for a fact, like, to those of you guys who are elementary schools, you probably are familiar with a safe place, like in your classroom, where you have like a little comfortable spot with like pillows and blankets where they can go cool off if they get really upset. Like, that's something that elementary level does. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to have any of that stuff in my classroom. The way that they're also talking, we're not going to be able to have like a class library in the same way that we've always had it, because there's too many people touching the books and shuffling them around and potentially putting contagious, bacteria on the book. So I don't know what my classroom's going to look like. In my brain, and maybe I'm being too extra, but in my brain, I see this super sterile classroom where everybody's so far apart from each other, nobody's talking. Like, that's what I picture in my classroom. And for a kindergarten teacher, that sounds absolutely horrific. So, like I said, tomorrow is my first day back. Hopefully I get all of that information tomorrow about what my classroom should look like in accordance with the CDC guidelines. I don't know. I'm just really walking into this big ball of unknown. I don't know what this year is going to look like for me. I know there's a lot of teachers out here who are trying to keep like a positive disposition and trying to be upbeat, like, oh, it's gonna be okay, you know, as long as we pray and, you know, we try our best and keep our baby safe, everything's gonna be okay. But my thing is like this. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in positive thought. But I also know when, like, as Jerome mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I also know when teachers are once again being treated like guinea pigs, and I don't like it. It feels evil to me that a government would ordain children to go back inside of an in-person classroom in the middle of a pandemic that's worse than it was 5 months ago. To me, that's evil, bro. These are children. There's not enough data out there to determine how this virus affects children, but we're still putting them out there for whatever reason. We're still putting teachers in these positions. We are potentially putting students' families in positions because, you know, there's data and study that says that children don't carry the virus or they don't spread it as effectively as adults. But think about elementary school children. They have backpacks on their person. They have lunch kits on their person. They're taking school supplies back and forth to school. Even if the virus is not on their person, it could be on their clothes, their backpacks, their lunch kits, their school supplies, their pencils, their folders. There's so many things that kids bring to school with them and have at school with them that could have the virus on it if it's not on their person. So it's like, why are we putting people through that? I know why we're putting people through that. I can tell you exactly why. It's because teachers are still treated to this day as not educators, but glorified babysitters, and they're trying to get people back to work. And a lot of people don't want to go back to work because they're worried about childcare, because we have such a jacked up system that makes childcare so hard to obtain for so many families. And school is basically free lunch for kids. A lot of kids rely on school systems for food and care. And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate. And I've been so anxious about this whole thing since TEA has said what they're expecting for districts to do in the state of Texas. I've been having legit anxiety attacks over this stuff. Like, being on social media too long has made me anxious because so many people are talking about this topic. And it's just like, it's evil, bro. That's really the best way I could describe it. Somebody said this, that it's effectively genocide to have, especially at the high school level where they're bigger and they're approaching adulthood and they are effective at spreading the virus. You're sending those kids to potentially die or kill their families. That's really the bottom line. I might sound like a conspiracy theorist. I don't think that I'm being a conspiracy theorist. I think I'm just looking at the reality of things, and I'm not pretending to be happy just because I love my job and I'm passionate about my job. I would love nothing more than to be back in my classroom and be amongst my children and build a rapport with my new students and build a classroom family. But this just doesn't feel right to me. I understand that virtual learning has its drawbacks because we've experienced that. We've experienced the learning part, the virtual part, but I would rather go through issues with technology that potentially putting my children and their families in a potentially deadly situation.
Indeed.
And like Tundeck said, look what's happening in Georgia.
Yep, that one school in Georgia. You know what I heard? That the kid who took that picture got suspended.
I heard that too.
I haven't found the exact article that said it, but somebody put that in my ear. And I find that's despicable. Literally despicable.
And Brittany says, my college already had 2 COVID cases. I can't imagine how many cases elementary and middle school levels would end up having.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There are a bunch of colleges who brought their athletes to schools for, especially in those big districts. Not big district, but big school conferences, you know, like the Florida states. And most of them have had some kind of COVID case where they've had to send the kids home or quarantine them. Right.
So it's like if one of my babies has COVID or even if their dad or their mom has COVID, so that means that my student could potentially have COVID. So that means my whole class and me have to quarantine for 2 weeks? How does that work? Like, what? How is nobody thinking about this stuff? Why are we pretending like we're not in the middle of a global pandemic? I don't understand the logic.
Me neither. Jamal, my high school band director that taught me in high school, they've been I think they started this week. Well, I think they started last week, and they've been going in person. And not only have they been going in person, but I don't even think they're like social distancing from what I've seen. The teachers I've seen don't look like they've been. I don't know. Well, I can't say what they look like. They've been doing.
Anybody who's ever been in a high school, especially a populated high school, understands that it's almost impossible to social distance because high schools tend to have lots and lots of students.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
easily.
And even in the elementary school, it's not, because kids are in transit, going from one place to another, like going to the cafeteria, going to the library, going to specials. Like, how was that gonna work?
It's not.
So our kids, like, I'm just curious if my kids are even gonna have, like, are they gonna have specials? Like, are they going to music? Are they going to art? Are they going to PE? Like, I don't know what that's gonna look like.
Places have been fired already.
Say what?
Or been laid off. A lot of music teachers in different places, like in some of those really Midwest, in those Midwest states and those West states have already been laid off
because they're not doing like specials and stuff.
Yeah,
they're not doing it.
I don't know. I don't know how, if they're not doing it or not, but I know I've seen a lot of posts in different band groups that they've like, oh, I've been laid off, or I've been told I'm going to teach something that's not, my content.
I just don't know how that's going to work.
It's not.
That's the same thing Tundex said. He said it's not going to work.
You don't have to question it. It's not.
So we were going to talk about our opinions about reopening schools, about whether or not we think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I think you guys pretty much know where I stand on this.
I think based on my little rant on it. It's all bad. I think our opinions is kind of there. I think because
I really did want to talk about the pros and cons and try to be. No, I have very strong opinions about this, y'all. If y'all came here expecting a balanced opinion about reopening schools, I don't have a counter argument. I don't think we should do it.
I tried to give my counter argument. It just made me mad.
You tried talking about the difficulties with virtual learning, but I would take issues with Schoolology than potentially get kids and their families sick. That's really the bottom line.
For sure. And I'll take it too. Great. I'm taking it. I'm grateful.
Because Schoology was horrible. Like, I'm not going to say it was horrible. Let me take that back. But learning it was a challenge. But we conquered it. It's possible. But it's like we are having to fill a void that we have as a country. And it's like teachers are creative. We're innovative. We're lots of things. But we ain't magic. We can't be... We're not gonna be the ones to make this all okay. It's not happening. We're in a pandemic. That's what it is. We ain't got nothing to do with that. Nor the solution of that. That ain't on us. So I don't understand why. And me and Jerome were talking about this off air. Just a couple of months ago, everybody was talking about how teachers are heroes and everybody is thanking us, like you guys do this every day and I'm just doing it for a couple of days and I don't understand how you do it. And now we're being thrust into the fire in a couple of months and I'm just trying to understand, are we at least getting hazard pay?
Yeah.
Am I at least getting an additional check? I know the answer's no, but it would be great if we were. Because we are essentially putting our health at risk at this point. And we ain't got noun hazard check. Noun. I think that's all I got to say before.
I ain't got nothing else to say.
I think that's really all I got to say about this whole thing. But if anybody has any questions in the chat, any comments in the chat, I would be more than happy to discuss those and talk about those. Jamal, you a fellow teacher. Feel free to put your thoughts in the chat, make your voice heard, because I know there's a lot of things that's looking real brazy right now. Everybody's looking for answers, but really the answer is we're trying to hide from a problem that exists whether we like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Jerome, any last words?
I don't know, because I think, so for me, a lot of it, like, I think we really need to reconvene, like, well, in a few weeks, because I think once we get more information from our staff meetings and our trainings, and then you'll actually be in the trenches next week.
Right.
It'll be like a lot. We'll probably have a lot more to say, good or bad. Probably not so good, but you know, I don't know. I don't, you know, I don't want to go. I'm sad that you're going in person. I'm gonna really be like praying for you, like. And I'm probably gonna be like trying to text you every day and like, hey, is it okay? Cause
yeah, for real.
That is scary. It's and isn't the cases are like skyrocketing in Texas?
In Texas, they're pretty bad. Like, we one of the states in the country that has like some of the highest cases. They say it's starting to drop off a little bit, but it doesn't matter, because the fact of the matter is we still worse off than we were in March. So why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. That's really my thought process. Like, normally, like, I used to keep up with the charts in my particular area about the COVID cases. I kind of stopped doing that because it was starting to make me anxious. But yeah, our hospitals are pretty much at capacity. I'll put it that way. In my area alone, and I'm not even in one of the biggest areas in the state. I don't live in one of the major cities. I live in a larger area, but I don't live in one of the major cities. So, yes, Rosby, I'm going to be going in person. Yep. The silver lining is that I'm only going to have 10 students, but still, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, 10 students is still too many in my opinion. Considering the circumstances, 10 students is still enough to spread a virus. So,
indeed.
But all I can do is do whatever that I can to keep me and my students safe, and teach them the proper protocols on how to keep themselves safe. That's the best thing that I can do. But trying to entrust 5 and 6-year-olds with being on their P's and Q's 24/7 to keep themselves and their family safe is going to definitely be a challenge. I don't know if it's a challenge that I welcome, because it could have some very severe circumstances attached to that. So that's all I can really say about that.
Yeah.
That's really.
I'm gonna take mine in stride, and I'm looking at the page to see if there were any new comments that I may have missed.
Comments, but not really questions. Like, Brittany says that we deserve hazard pay, and then Rosby was asking me about going in person. He says he's gonna pray for me, and it's like, that's pretty much it. But yeah, if there's no comments, questions, I think we can bounce, because like, this is starting to give me anxiety.
Yeah, I'm getting anxious too, and I'm hungry. So
facts. Anyways, you guys, thanks to the 12 people, we had up to like 15 people watching us right now, which is actually really good, because this is a very niche podcast considering my audience. So I appreciate everybody who came through. Brittany says, now I gotta DM you every hour tomorrow and make sure you're good. See, tomorrow we're gonna be back. See, here's the weird thing about me going back to school tomorrow. I'm going back to school tomorrow for like teacher time, professional development. Like, I'm not gonna be with my students tomorrow. My students don't come back to school until next week. So tomorrow we're gonna be starting our professional development. I'm gonna be in my classroom, but our professional development courses are gonna be happening virtually. Cause like normally when we come back to school, you know, we all meet up in the school cafeteria, and like the principal and the AP and the counselor would put together these trainings, and we would all do them in the same room. But this year we're all gonna be in our classrooms, but virtually. Like, make it make sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, Jerome.
You know, I'm trying to, but I can't.
Oh, I don't understand.
You know, I tried to earlier, but I couldn't. You know, I tried it. Yeah, it's all bad. Like I said, there's no like it's really not a good way or a bad way to do it, but I'll take virtual as being the best way we got.
I feel like virtual is hard on us as teachers because I feel like it's more work for us. Yeah. But at least people are safe.
Yeah. I think I agree with virtual, but I hope that they don't have. I hope that my prediction that they're going to be really stringent on like these virtual things, these our grading processes and evaluations. I'm hoping that they still lax it a little bit or be more lax about it.
Right.
But I don't know.
Hopefully, it's not going to be as bad as you think. There's no way they could expect us to teach with fidelity over a computer. Like, there's just no way. But they will still expect it. They still will. You know for a fact that they still will. But anyway, like I said, I'm getting anxious, so I'm going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Anything that you want out in the open before we bounce up out of here?
Follow me on Twitter, Bald and Bougie. That's where I do most of my stuffs at. I posted my friend chat in somewhere. If y'all play Pokemon or anything on Switch, you can add me on Switch. We'll be live tweeting our experiences as they happen. So even when we're not in podcast, you'll still be hearing us. So I'm always welcoming discourse on Twitter. Like, talk to me. Ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, that's all about. Thank you guys for coming and talking with us. I appreciate it. You guys, a lot of you guys are like mostly I know through Nia, and so I really appreciate you guys like really interacting with me as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you to everybody who came through and listened to the podcast. Like I said, we got up to about 15 watchers today, so I really do appreciate that, because I do know that this is a more of a niche type of podcast on my channel, since a lot of you guys might not really be particularly interested with the education education in particular, but I love that you guys still come to support Jerome and I. So thank you guys again. Just as Jerome said, you guys can always like follow me on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. Thanks to everybody who was wishing us well in the chat. We definitely appreciate it. We're going to need all the well wishes and prayers, because
amen,
this is going to be a challenge. And I know to a lot of you, it sounds like we're just a bunch of grumpy, complaining teachers. You don't take this stuff seriously, but we do, because we actually care about our students and their families and ourselves, because we should be able to care about ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic. That's just really the bottom line.
We care about ourselves, period.
I mean, period, but especially now. Like, people are just like, oh, teachers are being selfish, they're complainers, just fire them and let somebody else take their place. Like, you know what? You come do it. Mm-hmm. You get your teaching cert and you come teach these kids in the middle of a global pandemic. I wish you would, because a lot of my teacher friends have more guts than any of you.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Heck, we raise people kids for that matter. Huh? I said we raise people kids. We're more parents to some kids than their actual parents are.
You feel me? But we're not gonna talk about that.
That's for another podcast. That's another episode. We'll wait until we end the year for that one, when we're in the midst of the year.
Okay. But I'm gonna go play some games, because like I said, I'm getting anxious. This topic makes me anxious. Thanks again, guys, for coming through. You guys take it easy, and please take care of yourself, social distance, wear a mask, hand sanitizer, wash your hands, all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll be able to update you guys on this Teachers in Quarantine.
Yeah.